Hi, I'm here today with Marcello Sasso. How are you today? I'm great. Thank you for joining me. Marcello Industries, CPG, FMCG, fashion, food and beverage, travel, leisure, home goods, media, technology, IT, financial services, insurance, automotive, pharmaceutical, healthcare, agriculture, packaging and logistics, chemical strategic insights leader with 25 years transforming human and market intelligence into competitive advantage across 25 countries, pioneering innovative in AI enhancement market research methodologies, integrating traditional research with advanced analytics to deliver actionable insights that drive measurable business growth. Wow, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to see you today.
My pleasure.
Let's just get started with the core idea. When you think about integrated intelligence, what does that actually look like in practice when you're integrating behavior, transactional, and contextual data?
Yes, in the market research industry, the most common way to approach the markets has always been, let's do a market research. Let's see how consumers react and what they think about our products and services. Um, but on the other side, we still have a lot of big data, CRMs, and sales data that are actually showing what consumers are actually doing. Um, so the integrated intelligence takes a different approach, more holistic. Um, it tries to understand the link between what people think and how they behave and what is the result. So, in a nutshell, if you integrate the behavioral data, which is basically what you can find out doing market research like a survey or an interview, together with what are the sales data, how are these people really shopping in the stores, and then you have all these transactions. So now you have how they behave and how they spend their money, but what is really driving their choices? And that's why you need a third component, which is basically the lifestyle, the changes in the lifestyle, the emerging trends, everything that's really influencing the people's behavior and their spending. We are living in troubled times now, so anything can really affect the way you perceive and spend, and also with social media moving so fast, it takes just one influencer to change people's minds in just a snapshot. And that's why it is important now to merge these three sources of information, again, behavioral, transactional, and contextual, into one single container. And in this case, AI is giving us a huge hand because it can synthesize them into one single finding and even understand the small lines, the dots, connecting the dots between these three sources and giving us a more comprehensive and actionable picture of the situation.
So instead of looking at those independently, they're all um, together in your research. Wow. You've talked about how different functions see completely different versions of the customer. How does integrated intelligence reconcile those conflicting perspectives into one decision?
So I spoke about the behaviors, the transactions, and in every company there are different functions that are looking at different phenomena. So when it comes to sales data, uh, then the sales force is most interested in how can we sell more? How can we avoid our customers to go to our competitors? On the other side, marketing is more on how should we communicate? Show me the behavioral data, show me what people like and dislikes so that I can use the language they use and engage with them. So you see, everyone is actually studying the same phenomenon, but from different perspectives. If you use a more comprehensive approach, which is the integrated intelligence, then the answers you're providing are actually serving more than one stakeholder. The answer is more complete and can actually serve marketing, sales, new product development, and it can even scale up to the C level.
That's amazing that you were able to think that way. How do you distinguish between early signals that are worth acting on versus noise that organizations tend to overact to? And how can AI help you identify these opportunities?
Okay, let's then first explain how AI works. AI tends to amplify some of the signals. So even when we use AI, which is a very good tool to identify these small signals, and many times we call them weak signals. So which means among thousands of people, like 4 or 5 people are mentioning the same complaint, and they all line up and they all add up. So that means, hey, if 4 or 5 people are speaking about the same problem, that might become bigger. AI is able to identify this, especially because when you run a survey, little complaint may be just a couple of words in a description, or when you interview people, it can be just again a couple of words in a free conversation. So humanly speaking, it will take a lot of time and a lot of efforts to find all these little nuances and link them together. AI can do it. But as I said, AI tends to amplify the phenomena. So once you identify these weak signals, it still takes the human expertise to understand how to contextualize that specific finding. So again, linking it to a an emerging trend, something that's happening in the world, that's basically bringing people to think about that. I mean, think about how health conscious people are becoming. So it takes just a couple of people to start complaining about how natural is, I don't know, an ingredient, and then it can become mainstream. So when you identify these conversation pockets that are emerging, that's when you have to deep dive and understand whether knowing that specific thing can actually represent a competitive advantage for your company versus your competitors, because you know in advance what is going to happen and you can act very fast and promptly.
So, speaking of promptly, how do you balance speed and confidence when validating a concept, especially when AI is surfacing insights faster than organizations are used to acting on them?
So I believe that AI is not meant to replace the human expertise. AI is meant to augment what people can actually do and how deep we can go in finding and analyzing phenomena. So in this case, through um, AI can actually increase the speed of processing the data and processing the information, but you still need the human expertise to interpret the outcome. And again, the concept validation, which is something that I'm strongly working on at the moment, especially by creating a specific engine is not meant to replace market research. It's actually meant to enable researchers to screen out some of the ideas and concepts that may not be successful. So, in a nutshell, when a company has ideas for new products, they usually have 10, 20 new ideas, but they only end up testing two or three because A, it's too expensive,
Right.
B, it will take too much time. So the concept validation engine is something that's actually helping people to screen every idea and understand out of the 20 ideas we have on the table, which ones gets the priority and which ones have more potentials to be successful if we launch them.
I like that the AI still needs the people to be involved in these decisions. I'm hearing more and more about AI, and as a human resource consultant, I like to know that the people are still involved in all aspects of the employer's decision. When we're talking about human judgment, where does human judgment still matter most in a concept validation engine, and where should leaders trust the AI more than their own instincts?
So they should trust AI more than the instinct when it comes to make data driven decisions. Now, humans can process and elaborate data, but we have some limitations, right? Because we can't really remember thousands and thousands of data points and generate a result out of so many data points. AI can help us doing that, but then again, we have to understand that AI it's something that can make things quicker, not better. And when I say not better, I mean that anything that comes out of AI needs to be validated by humans anyway. Because think about, and I make an example. We were doing a concept validation test on some new purses, and data were actually showing, oh, this is a good idea, this project is going to be successful. But then remember that fashion is actually something related to the concept of art, and human tastes don't really follow a specific pattern. So you may change what you like in terms of how you dress up, or your purse, or any kind of accessory and apparel, and that's not predictable. So, true, you get a result out of AI, but then your human expertise about fashion is still needed.
And when the humans are involved, it can change year over year of what is considered fashionable. So,
Correct.
in the real world application, can you walk through an example where integrating multiple data layers revealed something that single source research would have completely missed?
Oh, I usually tell this very, very interesting case when, for a pharmaceutical company, I was studying why some specific targets were not really engaging with the communication, especially about lowering cholesterol, which is delivered through cardiologists. And they were wondering why their communication was not very effective onto um, Black Americans. That was, and there were two data points, right? Okay, our communication is not generating more sales. On the other side, then we see cardiologists are not prescribing enough uh, cholesterol lowering treatment. So that means I mean, the equation was not interested, not prescribing, then they're not really worried about high cholesterol, which is not true. So, um, using different sources, trying to understand the demographics and the lifestyle, then we understood that only 3% of American cardiologists are. And this is why Black Americans were not getting prescribed uh, the cholesterol lowering treatment by cardiologists. They prefer to stay within the community, and the regular communication channels like social media were not efficient because they prefer face to face communication, especially in churches and barbershops. So it was a revelation for the client who decided, oh, then we have to plan for some local events to engage and create awareness about treatments available on the market. So that was a clear example of how, if you connect the behavior but also the sales data and the contextual information, because without that, you would never understand where to go and get your target.
Very interesting. Let's speak about the competitive advantage. At what point does concept validation become a true competitive advantage versus just a research capability?
You think about that when you want to test a new product, um, it takes something between 3 and 6 months to create the concept from the idea, then generate a prototype. And even if the prototype is just a sketch or a storyboard that describes the service or the product, then by the time you uh, ask the market and you get the answer, it's been already 3 to 6 months. So it's taking time. Meanwhile, your competitors are moving ahead. And it's also expensive, as I said. Every time you test a product, you may spend 20, 30, $40,000 just to test the idea. And that's when you understand this is not sustainable. We need to find a way to streamline and have an initial feedback on the ideas before we transform the ideas into prototypes. So that's where the concept validation is actually enhancing research because it's telling you where to focus, who's your target, what is the lexicon that best resonates with your target. So it's already giving you some indication. So, first of all, you can test many ideas. Second, you reduce the execution time. And third, results are more accurate and you're spending your money in a better way because you're targeting, you're not, let's say, shooting the mass. You are just going on to your specific target, the one that best resonates with your idea.
It's amazing. Now let's discuss the leadership shift. What do leaders need to unlearn to actually trust an integrated intelligence model when making high stakes decisions?
This is my sweet spot because I keep reading and hearing AI is here to help us,
Mm-hmm.
and people are scared AI is going to take our jobs. That's not true. AI is just changing the way people work. So people need to unlearn and get out of their comfort zone and rethink their expertise. So think about, especially in marketing and market research and everything that's basically involved in the go to market strategy. For many years, we've been the experts in providing the right answers. Now, AI can process faster than us. We need to change the way we think about ourselves in terms of expertise. We need to become the experts in providing the right questions that AI
Okay.
can answer. So you see, you still need the same expertise, you still need the same know how, but in terms of where you need to focus, it's just a shift of focus. I don't focus anymore in the interpretation and the processing of data. I focus on the validation of data that's generated by AI. And in order to generate good data, I need to make the right questions. And that's when prompt engineering becomes something key for the job market moving forward. Because think about AI as a young assistant. If you don't ask the perfect question, then the young assistant will deliver something that's not satisfying you, right? If you don't say, this is how I want you to process the data, and this is the output that I want, and why you need it this way, then AI works on assumptions. And what happens? You don't get accuracy. So do not leave anything out that might seem too obvious when making the questions in AI. Always be very specific, and that's the area where everybody needs to specialize. How to make right questions to get the right answers.
So be very specific and clearly write the prompts that you want to get the answer to. And I've learned that we do not need to get rid of our leaders or our
Absolutely.
sales force or marketing. And we continue forward as AI comes into the business. It is our assistant rather than
AI
the
is
person.
a helper, not a replacement. AI is a helper. So if you already hold good knowledge of the market, that's still your area of expertise and it's still your asset. You just have to leverage your asset in a different way.
It was so wonderful talking to you today. I've learned so much. Thank you for coming to the podcast, and I appreciate all of your wisdom.
Thank you. It was my pleasure speaking to you.